Should we start?
मैंने कल मिस कर दिया था.
Hello.
Sir, if you want, you can proceed further, or we can wait
See,
for 1 more minute so that
I am just coming. My this thing link got disconnected probably. Can you see me?
Yes, sir, you are visible
Yes.
to us.
Oh, sorry. Should we start, friends? Good morning. Today we will be talking about non-alignment movement. Now, this is of course a global issue, and global issue in the sense this does not relate just to our country, but to the world as a whole. Now, as a backdrop to the understanding non-aligned movement, first I would like to say that the world earlier, there was a bipolar world. Now, even this we need to understand. First, we should understand that in the world, earlier there were kingdoms. Kingdoms got replaced by the modern nation states. And as the modern nation states come, at the same time, initially, we witnessed a phenomenon called colonialism. Now, what is colonialism? Now, as industrial revolution progressed in many of the European countries, their industrial production went up, and they started looking for markets all over the world. In the process, they not only traded, but they enslaved those countries. Our own country was under the slavery of British for 192 years. Similarly, most of Asia, South Asia particularly, Africa and South America, they were in the colonial grip. Now, if we understand this, we will have a lot to, because this will help us a lot in understanding what is non-alignment. So first, let's understand what is colonialism. Colonialism is a global phenomenon where few European countries, they controlled, ruled large part of the world. Now, there is a very interesting thing about colonialism, and this was in a jocular way, but this helps us understand how vast was the colonial empire of British. So British had colonies, France had colonies, Portugal had colonies, Germany had lesser, France had lot of colonies and all that. So once Shashi Tharoor in his lecture said that there was a saying that the British Empire is so vast that the sun does not set there. Sun does not set. Means in some part of the British Empire, there is always sun. So Shashi Tharoor, a great writer also, commented that sun did not set in the British Empire because God was not trusting in the British Empire's motives. Because the motives of empires were clear. They claim that they have come to civilize us. That's what British said, that this is civilizing mission of the East for which they have come. But in reality, their aim was to plunder these countries. So most of our raw materials, our precious stones and our wealth was plundered by the colonialism. So colonialism is one. Now around 1940s, around 1940s, colonialism started crumbling and new countries started coming up. Like India initially was under British, large part of Africa was under France, partly Britain somewhere. At that time, America did not have much role. America comes in later to plunder the world in the form of imperialism. So first remember the word colonialism. In colonialism, there is a direct rule of the colonial power. They directly rule. Then after this, as the countries started becoming independent, there was a lot of countries which became independent. So imperialism comes after this. What is imperialism? Like in between, imperialism of America was very prominently known. Many of the British powers were also part of the imperialist bloc. Imperialism meant to control the economy of weaker countries. So colonialism followed by imperialism. So this you keep on one side. Now, second phenomenon which happens on the other side, you have to remember that many countries start becoming independent. And in this, of course, one can count around close to 100 countries which became independent from the decade of 1940s. You also must be remembering the Second World War. What was Second World War? Second World War was, on one side, there was Britain, America, later on Russia also joined. And on the other side, there was Germany and Japan. There were many problems between these two blocs. British power, British America on one side, Germany, Japan on the other side. But one of the crucial issues was who will control bigger sector of colonies. So that was also there. And Germany, where we saw the rise of Hitler, one of their grudge was that they don't have too many colonies to control and plunder and to build the wealth of their nation. Wealth of the nation, you must have heard this phrase. So here comes colonialism followed by imperialism. Here comes colonialism, and then there is independence of many of the countries going away from the direct control of the colonial masters. Now let's see the third phenomenon. In 1917, in Russia, there occurs a revolution inspired by the principles of Marx. Lenin led the revolution, and it was called a socialist revolution. Now, in Russian Revolution, we must remember that their inspiration came from Marx, who dreamt of a communist society. Honestly, I must say that what happened in Russia was nowhere close to what Marx was dreaming of. Marx was dreaming of two things. One is equality, second is democracy. Equality, democracy. In Russia, the democracy was replaced by dictatorship of the Communist Party. So similar model was followed by many other communist countries like China, Poland, Hungary, and certain European bloc. Why this is important to understand? Because this is how world became bipolar. So on one side, there are countries like America, Britain, where there is a naked display of capitalism. What is capitalism? Here, the capitalist industrialists are totally free. They do not have any social regulations. So capitalism. What is communism? What is this socialist bloc as it came? Now, let's not relate it to Karl Marx's ideas of communism. That is totally different. In that, democracy and equality walk together. In the socialist countries, there came the dictatorships of communist parties. But that apart, what is of our concern in understanding non-violent is this, that after Russian Revolution, Russia became a powerful country. That is true. It was feudal country, It had not much industrial development, some industrial development. It was ruled by Tsar, and primarily feudalism was prevalent in Russia. After revolution, there was a rapid growth in industrialization, absolutely rapid growth. There was a rapid growth in agricultural production. There was a rapid improvement in health facilities, in education facilities, and in the average life of the people. But they had to pay a heavy price of dictatorship of the Communist Party, which later on came to be known under Stalin. Under Stalin, the dictatorship came, but the material conditions of Russia improved a lot. Now, why I'm going to details of this? Because later on, the two blocks which were formed. So one block was led by America, the capitalist bloc. It used to call itself free world. So there was free world, there was democracy in these countries, but the social inequality was gross. For the top people in the society, there was everything. For the bottom people in the society, they had a lot of deprivations to suffer. While in the socialist bloc, there was overall progress, there was no democracy, and the people at average had reasonable basic needs fulfilled. Reasonable basic needs fulfilled, but all their other needs of luxury, consumerism were not taken care of. So two worlds, capitalist world, which called itself free world, and socialist bloc led by Russia, also associated with China, Hungary, Poland, Yugoslavia, etc. So these were the two blocks when other countries started becoming independent. So what do these countries do? They ally with the Western bloc led by America, or they ally with the Eastern bloc or communist bloc led by Russia. So here comes the vision of leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Gamal Abdul Nasser, Sukarno, Joseph Broz Tito, and Nkrumah. Remember these 5 words I'm just repeating in case you want to note down. Jawaharlal Nehru, India; Gamal Abdul Nasser, Egypt; Tito, Yugoslavia; Sukarno, Indonesia; and Nkrumah from Ghana. Okay, so now these people conceptualized that we will not ally with any of the blocs. We will not ally with America-led bloc. We will not ally with Russia-led bloc. We will progress our countries taking the help of others in whatever matters we suit. So the primary thing was military alliance. America wanted particularly that these countries should enter military pacts against the Russian bloc. But these countries felt that, like there was one alliance already, NATO, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in which many of the European countries were the members. So what they had agreed to each other that in case they are attacked, they will help each other. Actually, here the question was not of being attacked. They were powerful countries, but they wanted to dominate other countries. The real issue was NATO wanted to dominate other countries militarily so that their economy can flourish. Now, at this point, the leadership of these 5 people comes up, and in 1955, they declare non-alignment movement. I hope you have understood the background. Who are the members of these? These are the newly independent countries. Newly independent countries. Most of them were victims of colonialism. Most of them were plundered, exploited, looted by countries like Britain, France, Holland, and other European countries. And now they wanted to chart a path for their own self. So in 1955, they met in Bandung. In Bandung, they did not form a formal organization. They said, we are a movement. So what is the difference? In formal organization, there is a president, there is a chairman, there is a this thing, there is a that, formalities. Here they said, we are a movement and we will try to, sorry, there is this phone, I'll just see. Hello. Good morning. So, sorry, I'm sorry. I will not, I think I should hide my phone. There's a strong temptation to take the phone when it rings. Anyway, so I was talking that these 5 countries, then they invited other newly liberated countries to join them. So what will be the basis of this movement? This was called a movement. This was not an organization. Like NATO is an organization. This is a movement. So similarly, there was another organization which was called Warsaw Pact. Now, please remember, NATO on one side led by capitalist countries, and Warsaw was a group of communist countries, socialist countries. So these were the 2 military blocs prevailing at that time. So one bloc was socialist, another was capitalist. Capitalist bloc called itself free, and socialist world, one can say, communist parties were ruling in those countries. Okay, so this non-aligned movement mainly was constituted by the countries which were becoming newly liberated. So what will be the basis of this, their coming together? Number 1, that we will neither ally with NATO Western group, nor we will ally with the socialist group. For our economic development, we will try to seek the help of other countries by cooperation. So first was that we will help each other in progress. Number 2, we will not interfere in the internal matters of other countries. Number 2. Number 3, we will oppose the attack of any country on the other. Number 4, we will try to stick to the United Nations Charter of Global Relations. United Nations Charters, you must be knowing that after Second World War, United Nations came into being, and United Nations honestly was one of the best organizations which the world can have. The idea was world peace. There should not be a war. And in case of war between 2 countries, United Nations should try to sort it out on human grounds, on the grounds of law, on the grounds of sensitivity to the needs of each other. So non-aligned movement, United Nations dictums were very important. They wanted mainly to follow the norms which were set by United Nations. So in 1955 they met, and later on, I must say, as they progressed, they were gradually being recognized. So United Nations did not have the membership of all the countries. More countries were being formed. Why? More countries were being formed because many of them were coming out from the clutches of colonial powers. They used to form a country and they were to be recognized by United Nations. So non-aligned movement, it took it upon itself to take the case of these countries to United Nations and to give them the membership of United Nations. Once a country gets the membership of United Nations, means you are a full-fledged country, you have full right to rule within your own country without being interfered from the other. Alok Srivastava has a question. Go ahead, Alok.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, my question that what are the differences between socialist and capitalist? What are the features?
Okay. Now, capitalists and this thing now, capitalist countries, they believe in the free enterprise. Free enterprise means capitalists will not have any restriction from the side of the state. They will totally be in charge of their industries, labor laws, conditions of the labor, selection of the market, selection of the product. So here there is a total independence to the capitalist class, number one. In socialist countries, the Communist Party totally controls the production and distribution of the goods. Production and the distribution of the goods. So Communist Party, which Pawan is saying government, yeah, Communist Party forms the government, and it is the total dominating force. Now the problem becomes this, then in capitalist countries, because it is a capitalist person, he knows that what is needed through the mechanism of the market. One example I'll give you. In a capitalist country, the capitalist realizes that people are wearing jeans. So they will go in for production of jeans. In communist country, the communist bureaucrat may not realize that people are no longer wearing the long workers' trousers. They may be needing jeans. So
Yes.
in communist countries, the problem came that the production was being decided not by market. It was being decided by the communist bureaucrats. So because of that, there was an overproduction of some things and there was absence of the other things which the people needed. But again, there is another difference that in capitalist countries, health was a private issue, education was a private issue, and many people could not afford costly health and costly education. In communist countries, they ensured that education, health, and the basic necessities of livelihood, they are going to all. Alok, I hope you are understanding.
Yes, clear, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right. So now I will go ahead. And so first thing they said, but of course, India adopted a model somewhere in between. India said, because India, when it became, this is an additional point I'm adding for the elaboration of the same point. When India became independent, its industrial growth was very poor. And the industrialist class, there are two factors which came here. Industrialist class which was called Bombay Group, led by Tata, Birla, Bajaj, etc. They requested the government that we need heavy infrastructure industries. Now, what are heavy infrastructure industries? Like, for example, I'm a private capitalist. I want to set up a factory for manufacturing pins, staple pins. What will I need? I'll need steel. From where will the steel come? I'll have to import the steel at that time. So these are the heavy industries like steel. Government, on the other side, Nehru was impressed by the socialist model as far as the industrialization was concerned. So Nehru combined the two. On the one side, he promoted public sector. So what was public sector? Which will go into heavy industries and the things which are essentially basic to the development of the production. So Pawnee is correctly pointing out, so it was a mixed economy. So there was some sector which was to be controlled by the government in turn by society, and some freedom given to industrialists on the other. Of course, currently the equation is totally changing, and even our public sector, which gave us a lot of production, lot of stability, lot of development, that is gradually being sold to the private area, because the present government believes from last 30 years that even earlier government also believed that government should not enter into the business. Anyway, that's a separate debate. What should be controlled by society via government and what should be left to the industrialists, that debate will anyway continue. So non-alignment movement basically was saying that none of the countries from outside should dictate us what path we follow in military alliance, in development of our own industry. In development of our own industry. So this they tried to successfully do. So what was their first success? Their first success was that they ensured that all those countries who were becoming newly independent, they ensured that they are recognized as full nations by United Nations. One of the important things, of course, after 1955 Bandung Conference, the second one was took place in Belgrade. Belgrade, you must be knowing, it is in Yugoslavia. And in Belgrade, they tried to formalize, and now they started talking about injustices which are prevalent in the world. What was the biggest injustice which was prevalent in the world at that time? If you know, in South Africa, there was an apartheid regime. Apartheid regime, here the African Americans, who are popularly called as blacks, they did not have rights to citizenship. As they did not have rights to citizenship, non-aligned movement, it demanded that apartheid regime should end. You must have heard the name of Nelson Mandela. He drew a lot of inspiration and moral support from the non-alignment movement. Now, so this non-aligned movement, basically we should try to understand what were its principles, which are very ideal. Now it carried on till 1990 very strongly. It had a strong voice in the global affairs. People used to watch as to what stand non-alignment movement takes. And we should be happy that Jawaharlal Nehru was one of the very respected leaders of non-aligned movement in the initial parts of the Republic. So that's where it came. It outlined some of the principles. One was peaceful coexistence. That whenever there is a dispute between two nations, it should be sorted out by methods of peace. So this was one of the major things. Then and second, they said, wherever there is a foreign occupation, this foreign occupation by other countries should be ended. So it used to take a moral stand. Obviously, implementation of this was not in the hands of non-aligned movement, but its recommendations were taken note of by United Nations, and many times United Nations did try to take it up in their policies. And of course, it will be surprising today, because that time United Nations was quite a powerful force. It used to restore peace sometimes in the two warring countries. It used to send the peacekeeping force. Peacekeeping force was also being sent by United Nations so that peace is restored. And most of this was done on the instance, on the request, etc. of the non-aligned movement, which was aware mainly of the rights of the weaker countries in the world. Now, they said that this military alliances, which are becoming oppressive to other countries, that military alliances should be stopped, should come to a close. Now, this, of course, continued, and we can see the importance of this in India. So in context of India, if we see non-aligned movement, because we did not ally either with the socialist world or with the capitalist world, we could take the help of both these blocks for our economic growth. That is very important, because if you see, one of the symbols of our growth has also been institutions like IIT, for which many of you must be aspiring. Now, so we set up initially 5 IITs. IIT Kanpur was set up in collaboration with America. IIT Bombay was set up in collaboration with Russia. and things like that. One IIT was set up in collaboration with Germany. So this was the advantage which non-aligned movement gave to countries like India. This one example I'm giving. Similarly, there was another thing perceptible, like if we see industrialization. In industrialization, one thing must be said, that America and Britain were not much interested in other countries developing their own industries. So Pakistan allied with America, and you can see its industrial development is totally abysmal. It is nowhere close to what India achieved. While Russia that time, even at that time, Russia had a policy, it used to help in the infrastructure development. So, but India was beneficiary of non-aligned movement, and that is one thing which helped us to develop our industrialization, scientific establishments, educational institutions of higher learning. India has made great achievements in these areas, scientific research, educational, this thing, and this could be possible only because we followed the path of non-alignment. Now, now in 1973, there was a conference in Algiers, and conference in Algiers in 1973, because by that time the global economic order was changing. What was happening? The socialist bloc was weakening, and in 1980s the socialist bloc totally collapsed. Now the question comes, why did socialist bloc collapse? It was a simple thing, because industrialization can sustain only when it is regulated by market. When the product, with the help of market, as dictated by the market, production goes, the production is sold, and industries flourish. In communist countries, as there was no regulation from the markets, only the bureaucrats were deciding how it should go. So in 1980s, socialist bloc started weakening, and by 1990s, the socialist bloc, Soviet Russia, not socialist bloc, Soviet Russia totally collapsed and replaced by a type of authoritarian state. Now, so in Russia, for formality's sense, there is democracy in most of the countries, but that is for formality's sake. In reality, there is practically a sort of a dictatorship, authoritarian regimes in many of these countries. And after this, the non-aligned movement tried to sustain itself. Now, the world was not bipolar. The main importance of non-aligned movement was in the bipolar world. Bipolar world, where on one side there is capitalism, on other side there is communism. Now, with the collapse of Soviet Russia, the main strength of communist world vanished from the globe, and world in a way for some time became unipolar world, dominated practically by America. And here non-aligned movement should become was kept alive by various factors, because the problems did not end, and its 14th summit took place in Hanoi, and this was in 14th summit in 2006, and India has been fairly active in most of these summits which have taken place. So after the course of Soviet state, Soviet Russia, the other things started coming up. Now what happened? Now this may not directly relate to the non-aligned movement, but one of the problems which non-alignment movement faces is that because there were two poles, Russia and America, non-aligned movement could carry on in its own way. Why? In the globe, there was a balancing force between America and Russia. Now the balancing force of Russia declined, and America became the single central hegemonic dominant power. And America, of course, I must say, American civil society is one thing, but American government that time brought a factors which promoted politics in the name of religion in many of the countries. Like you see Afghanistan, Pakistan had been a constant ally of America. That's the most unfortunate part. It is a constant ally of America all through. Now, of course, with coming up of China as a powerful force, of course, today one cannot say that it is a unipolar world. Bipolar world, of course, is not there. But China is again emerging as a power center. Russia is also emerging as a power center. And America, of course, remains to dominate the world even today. So in this situation, what is the future of non-alignment movement? In this situation also, the Hanoi conference, which I was saying in 2006, in this Hanoi conference, again the point was raised as how do we relate to the world? Because now there is no military domination. Through some of the policies of America, which probably, if the time permits, I will take up in some other lecture, there was a promotion of fundamentalist elements within Islam. Now, Al-Qaeda, you'll be surprised to know, some of you will be surprised to know, we condemn the terrorism, but this was initiated by training some of the Muslim youth in the madrasas of Pakistan in a distorted version of Islam. And that Al-Qaeda was supported by America monetarily and by armaments. This, of course, they themselves conceded. And if it is useful for your this thing, I will later on supply it to you through email also. Some of you can share some one simple book which I will try to recommend to you. So basically, the non-alignment movement today faces that politics in the name of religion weakens the democracy. The major factor wherever politics has come under the garb of religion, the democracy becomes weak. People are more motivated by emotions rather than reason. As they are more promoted by emotions, the law and the rule of law remains a secondary thing which is difficult to manage. So when we see today we see actually the domination of as the Russia collapsed, it was a good check, counterbalance to America's domination in the world. After the decline of Soviet Russia, America dominated the West Asia. Now, why America dominated the West Asia? It attacked Afghanistan. After that 9/11 thing happened, World Trade Center, and those things happened, it attacked Afghanistan. It attacked Iraq. The main goal was not a clash between Islam and Western civilization, as Samuel Huntington points out. Samuel Huntington puts it as clash of civilizations. It is not a clash of civilization. America wanted to control the oil resources of West Asia, and it spent a lot of money in attacking Afghanistan. Later on, war on Iraq. This is what precisely non-aligned movement was opposing. How can a single country decide that there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, so it has to be attacked? I hope you please keep it in your mind. Weapons of mass destruction was a pretext, ये बहाना था जिसके लिए इराक पे हमला किया गया. बाद में पता चला there are no weapons of mass destruction. So why did America attack Iraq? Against the opinion of non-alignment movement. Non-alignment movement wants that other countries should not interfere in the matters of other countries. Means America or any other superpower has no right to attack the other countries. If there is something, it should be settled legally. United Nations, that's what is the demand of non-aligned movement. What does it say? That all the disputes should be settled amicably, should be within the bounds of United Nations laws. You must have read for other things that United Nations, one of the best organizations in the world, has come out with many laws, many charters regarding non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, regarding control of environmental degradation, regarding the defense of human rights, defense of religious freedom, and all these things which have come up are a big advancement on the human society. So some of the countries, because they're violating the norms set by United Nations, the need of non-alignment movement is to raise its voice against the powerful, dominant countries who want to control the affairs all over the world. Why they want to control affairs all over the world? Basically, they want to control the economic raw materials, oil, and other resources in different parts of the globe. So many times the political slogans are hiding. Note this sentence. Political slogans are hiding the economic interest. Political slogans are hiding the economic interest, and that is a matter of worry. So non-aligned movement, as it has played a very great role in balancing the different countries, earlier different blocks, now it has a different role. And what is that's role? Its role is to ensure that United Nations norms, rules, morality, legality should be upheld, and the powerful countries should be stopped from interfering in the affairs of other countries. What right is given to any other country to decide that they should attack a country like Iraq? Basis was that there is a weapons of mass destruction. It came out to be bogus. What right did any country had to attack Afghanistan? They thought they are going to catch hold of Osama bin Laden. On this pretext, 60,000 Afghan people were killed. How many people were killed in World Trade Center? 2,000 people. How many people were killed in Afghanistan attack? 60,000 people. How much was the loss to the people? And it strengthened fundamentalist forces like Taliban in the area. So non-aligned movement doesn't accept that religion should be the weapon for political goals, and that is one of its major achievements. That's what, so non-aligned movement in the history of the world has posited, has put forward the values which are basically the values which we should follow in future, which we should follow to see a better humanity. And as Pavani has pointed out, the nuclear weapons also, some countries, of course, there is a mad competition. So they have nuclear weapons. So why we should not have nuclear weapons? And that, like even America had the nuclear weapons to the tune that the world can be destroyed 51 times over. We don't need nuclear weapons. We need United Nations Charter for the future course of the world. We need non-aligned movement so that the countries can relate to other in peaceful manner, prevent the war, prevent environmental degradation, and promote the human rights all over the world. That has been the main source, main agenda of non-aligned movement. So I must end this ground that if you want to understand non-aligned movement, we have to understand that the capitalist bloc, the socialist bloc, both tried to dominate in their own areas. Of course, there were differences. That's why newly becoming independent countries, they wanted to chart their own course. And through successive global summits, they achieved and they made a reputation for themselves that they stand for the principles of mutual coexistence. That is a central point which can make the world sustain in the long term. Now, colonialism, imperialism, and one thing I forgot to say, after World War, though there was no clear-cut war, but there was a subtle war, and that was called Cold War. Now, Cold War is an interesting word, that there is no armed conflict, but still the two blocks are at war with each other. So in a way, one can say that post Second World War, there was an era of Cold War, and non-aligned movement came up during the era of Cold War to ensure that Cold War doesn't get converted into hot war. That is my way of understanding it. So non-aligned movement in a way continued to promote the basic values, which our Indian constitution is also somewhere close to that, and many other countries which became free, they tried to follow this path. So with this, I think the basic points I have covered. I can just summarize them once before I take your questions. Number one, that after colonialism, imperialism came in on one side. In 1917, there was a Russian Revolution. Russia became strong. There was also a formation of communist bloc, socialist bloc, led by Russia, Hungary, Poland, China. On the other side, these colonial powers, they got converted into this bloc under NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and they also tried to dominate the world in an economic way. So both these blocks, as they were dominating, after Second World War, which was one of the worst disasters in the globe, it was a period of Cold War, and in this Cold War, non-aligned movement, particularly led by people like Nehru, Tito, Yasser, Nkrumah, Sukarno, they came up and they conceptualized a great movement called non-aligned movement, which sustained the values of non-interference, peace, and amity in different powers of the world. The basic premise is, if we can avoid war, if we can protect our environment, if we can avoid the nuclear race, average people in the world can live much better. So thanks. With this, your questions are most welcome. Pavni, I saw your comments. Anybody else has anything to say? Shaista, I saw your comment. Alok Srivastava, I answered your question. Alok, you constantly talk of social humiliation. Can you, what is your question about social humiliation?
Sairu, actually, we were talking about apartheid in in Africa, sir. So it was social humiliation, sir.
Very good, very good. I appreciate your point. Social humiliation. It was something, the naked caste system is a different form, which is again a form of inequality. Apartheid is actually much worse. It got a legal sanction, and because in India, caste never got a legal sanction. Our constitution begins with equality. So that's why, and it was one of the great achievements of non-aligned movement to oppose this apartheid regime of South Africa. Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else, friends? Could I make my points clear? Hope you have understood this era of industrialization and earlier period of feudal regimes, kingdoms, followed by all this. This is so This is very important for us to understand that society is not constant, and it is continuously changing, and the change is for better, change is for more prosperity, change is also for better values. Only by having the growth of few industrialists, society cannot prosper. Our final goal has to be that all the people of the country, all the people of the world can live with basic necessities and dignity. That should be the goal. With that, we still have 7 minutes. I hope you have understood it. So, Marvin, yes, your question is good. Thank you, everybody, those who have liked this. So should we call it a day? Okay, then I'm logging off with this. Thank you very much and hope to see you again soon. Okay. If you need some of these materials, I can probably send some list of books which help. Anyway, you already have too much material to prepare for your exam, so I won't load you with this. Okay, bye-bye. See you again.
You are currently the only person in this conference.